Nutrition is everything. It's the foundational building block of a healthy body, and when done appropriately for individual needs, people start to see success.
Excited to have Heather join us on the FITTEAM show today.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. All right, let's talk about Live Lean.
All right.
But before we do that, let's get started with tell us where you grew up, where you're from.
Well, I'm a Midwesterner. I'm from Ohio. Little small town, very much the opposite of Florida. Grew up playing pretty much every sport imaginable, always outside, had a high affinity for understanding the sports and athletic side of things, metabolic side of things, with a heavy nutrition focus. As an athlete, you need that to perform. It's one of the most important, components to kind of understand,
So you got nutrition and metabolic science early on.
Yeah, I was probably around 16. I had a path in my head that I wanted to go and be a naturopathic physician. Didn't quite make it there, but I have kind of made up the difference with, expanded certifications in nutrition, athletic training. My radiology degree allows me to perform DEXA scans, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but the bug bit me kind of early. I've always been kind of science-minded and, just understanding the whole, how the body works from head to toe as, a whole system. So holistic nutrition and holistic metabolics really made a lot of sense to me, whereas other people struggle with it.
So how did you first get started?
Yeah, so like I said before, just studying it myself as an athlete, I had a lot of mentors kind of growing up, worked under a lot of physical therapists, other holistic doctors, just kind of sought out knowledge every chance that I could get for free. When I was growing up, the jobs that I take, I wanted to learn something from them and not just collect a paycheck.
So in what you said, was it high school? You first started 16? It's kind of when you got started into it. So what was next after high school? What was the next step for you?
Well, like I said before, my original path was to go on to college and start the naturopathic physician route. So I started in, a local college. I dual enrolled in high school and started college very early, my freshman year of high school, with some courses, mathematics, sciences, things like that, just to kind of get the ball rolling. And it just kind of went on from there, and I've been building my educational base and certification base ever since.
What's some certifications you have?
So I have a holistic nutritionist certification that's recognized by the AADP and a couple of other organizations on their board as well, just focusing on holistic nutrition and treating the body as a whole instead of really looking at the symptoms and just kind of masking them, which is what a lot of people tend to do. And then obviously it's not really a certification, but, I do have a degree in radiology. I completed, NASM courses, NASM, personal training courses, years ago. Can I still do it? Yes. Am I actively doing it? No. Just providing more of general recommendations to clients when they come in for the testing. But my favorite thing to do is connect with people in the community and refer out.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about how you got started with Live Lean.
So it was about 4 years ago. I was invited into the partnership. My partners are amazing. They brought the concept with them from Texas, where they started the concept, and then it just kind of spitballed from there. Grew into the community, connecting with other professionals in the community, getting the name out, getting the awareness out of what the brand represents. And the resources available to people in the community, the kind of technology that we house in our centers were traditionally available in research hospitals or research institutions at colleges, athletic labs, things like that. High level sports and athletic performance for professional teams. But now we're kind of making it available to the general public for people that actually care about the science and actually want to know the requirements as it is for their bodies, and not just doing a generic calculation or equation to get some kind of ballpark range.
So if you were to explain Live Lean in a couple sentences or a short summary, what would you say for people to understand what you do?
So we're a metabolic assessment facility that really focuses on an individual approach to wellness. So we evaluate everybody's individual body composition via the DEXA scan, their resting metabolic rate or daily caloric expenditure per day during rest, daily activities, and 30 minutes of moderate exercise. So we can really see how the metabolism is performing and how many calories somebody is burning on a regular day. And then the VO2 max, it's a cardio fitness assessment, so we can actually see people's target heart rate zones, and you're not just relying on the generic calculations, 220 minus your age, or looking at the chart on the treadmill, at the gym, and, praying that it's right. So accuracy is everything. We see everybody from, people who are fitness enthusiasts or looking to get healthy and understand their requirements to like elite endurance athletes.
I'd love to hear like a story of someone that maybe has been coming for a while that you could share. Like someone came in, and you don't have to mention their name, but just maybe some results that they've had.
So I have a lot of stories. Obviously, being up and running for 4 years, you have the opportunity to change a lot of lives. So I think one in particular stands out to me. It was one of my traveling tennis athletes who came to me with his coach for the testing that he did, the body composition, the RMR, and the VO2. And then we kind of sat together afterwards and discussed the results and what they actually mean and related in terms to him. And part of the whole process is, kind of a short lifestyle evaluation of like, okay, what are you currently doing? Some people will say, oh, I have no idea, I'm not tracking. Or, usually athletes, they can give us a rundown, but they're not really tracking unless they have a really strict like nutrition or, fitness coach that is on point with it. Long story short, very young athlete, in late to mid 20s. Been playing tennis his whole life, was traveling the country, and was just finding that he was slowing down halfway through matches and wasn't really feeling good. And he was concerned, his coaching, his professionals were concerned. So that was the premise for doing the test. And once we found out the puzzle pieces that go together for his individual requirements, we were able to come together as a team to devise some recommendations and plans for him to increase performance. And he texted me about 2 weeks after he had started on the recommendations that I had given and worked with his team to create. And he said, I've felt better than I have in years. Just starting this and making the simple tweaks was all I needed to make the difference. And now I'm just, knocking it out of the park in terms of performance. So that's an example of, an endurance athlete kind of testimonial. But, you have everyday people too that come in, middle-aged women. I like to counsel with them a lot because the older that us women get, especially into our middle-age range, our bone density and bone health becomes a huge factor. And society tells us to do more cardio to lose weight. And, weight loss is a dirty term that we don't ever use in our facility. So because it's non-scientific. So just educating middle-aged women on that every day for the majority of my day is rewarding in itself. And just watching the kind of like the light bulbs come on and the dots connect once they have their real tangible individual data to their metabolic expenditures and bringing it to them in terms that they understand to reach their goals, and just watching them come back, every 3 months, throughout the year, and watching them transform in ways that they never thought possible.
Talk about the importance of diet.
Oh man.
It's almost everything, right?
Yeah, no, it's in my world, it's 98% diet, 2% exercise every day. There are some professionals out there that argue that it's 70-30 or 80-20. I've always felt that it's 98-2, and I've proven it time and time again. You don't have to work out and beat yourself into the ground, every day to get results. You should train efficiently for your requirements or your goals, but your nutrition also has to be there too. You can kind of think of it as like your car. If you need to go 500 miles and you only have enough fuel for 250, then you're shortchanging yourself, right? So nutrition is everything. It's the foundational building block of a healthy body, and when done appropriately for individual needs, people start to see success.
Absolutely. So someone's looking to perform better, an athlete, what's some advice, obviously coming to get their assessment, what's some advice you can typically have seen that they probably all like to improve?
Definitely need to put more focus on the nutrition and the way that they train. Eating to perform is a big thing for me. I find a lot of athletes are like nourishing after the fact of their event. I'm a big one for priming before the event and giving support during the day of the event. So it's understanding their metabolic expenditures and their requirements, as well as balancing the nutrients for those requirements as well for their sport. So if you're doing a more high endurance cardiovascular sport, training efficiently to get ready for that sport, it's good to have the VO2 max, because then it'll help you find out where your fat burning aerobic and anaerobic training zones are, so that you can tailor your training around that to get better performance, or better utilization of oxygen. And then, like I said before, the nutrition is a huge foundational piece of the puzzle with anything that you do. So, evaluating that as well. So some key signs that most athletes show when they're, not really balancing their nutrition or meeting their needs is, fatigue, foggy headed, making silly errors, cramping, things like that. So I guess it really just depends on the athlete, and that's the whole point of like the lifestyle intake and evaluation of each client, getting to know your client in order to recommend the proper tests, and then working with their team to devise a plan.
So switching gears a little bit and getting a little more personal, what's some tough experiences that you've encountered being an entrepreneur?
Well, there's a lot of them. Obviously, there is, a big struggle around like having a successful business and continuing to brand, create brand awareness and cost-effective means, connecting with the right people in the community, the right professionals who are going to understand your product as well as the customers. So I'm asked this question frequently when I do, other podcasts or just being interviewed by other professionals so they can help. They're like, what is your ideal client? Well, as much as I would like to say everybody, this information is not for everybody. Most times people in the community are just looking for that, like, okay, explain it to me, black, white Oreo cookie. This is not black, white Oreo cookie. This is black, white, shades of gray. Okay, so it's actually understanding the science behind it. Although we simplify it, we're not going to make you retake physics or do anything complicated or take a nutrition course, but you will learn about, what's appropriate for your body through the metabolic science portion of it, through the DEXA scan, the resting metabolic rate, and the VO2 max, to better build a lifestyle for you. So my ideal clients would be, the ones who are more data-minded, more science-minded, and have that mindset of, okay, this is not going to happen overnight for me. I need to put in the work and see what makes me feel the best so that we can, change as needed.
So a challenge is for people to even understand what you're looking for
so
in the market.
Challenging,
right.
Yeah. As much as it's very simple for me to understand because I've been doing it forever, it's very kind of like foreign language to somebody else. So it really takes a special kind of person to really understand the importance of the tests. And even educating peers within, my community, medical doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs, personal trainers, exercise physiologists, they already kind of, more on the fitness side, they already are kind of aware of the test, but they don't really see the importance behind it until one of their clients actually goes through it.
You mentioned branding. We're big on branding here at FITTEAM. If you would just talk about the importance of branding for any entrepreneur.
So it's really just getting your mission out there, separating yourself from, others in the industry. There are a lot of businesses that are parallel out there to where they do the same thing, but what makes you different? Like who makes you different? Who makes up your brand? Like what is your mission? So defining that clear and early on is a very important key tool that I felt over the years that really kind of like, brings you up from the rest, because especially in the health and wellness industry, you get buried by everything on the internet. The internet is kind of a disaster for everything. It kind of just gets lumped into one, and it's like kind of the claw machine when you Google something and, which ones get picked. and it's usually based on popularity and trending and things like that. But definitely brand separation, definition, your mission, and what you want to do, as well as like you as an individual person. Like, who are the creators of the brand? Like, what do they represent? What is their mission?
What's some professionally goals that you've accomplished that you're most proud of?
So again, creating, being a part of building these centers. There are two of them. The one here in Boca Raton, and then the other one in Tampa, Florida. Just building these centers and being able to touch lives in a different capacity, that is still through scientific education, but, on simplified terms. So, that's kind of like the most like rewarding factor is, connecting with other peers and professionals in the community too, to build, that connectivity, that consistent referral base of lives to touch.
What's some goals that you have going forward?
So continuing to build a strong relationship with the community, continue to build the business on the mission of, health through scientific education, really changing lives continually day in and day out with nutrition and exercise fitness balance, and showing people that it can be done with a little bit of elbow grease, on their part. Obviously scaling the businesses to be, available in more regions. And just work on, the moral behind the brand.
You mentioned early on you had some mentors. I always like to hear about some people, your team, behind the scenes, people mentor you to help you get to where you are today.
Yeah, so like I said, there were quite a few physical therapists, physician assistants on the holistic side of medicine. There were alternative treatment practitioners like chiropractors, DOs, the naturopathic physicians, even some MDs, they kind of help shape like the Western side. I was lucky enough to kind of intern both and see both worlds, working in clinical medicine, in the Western side of it, but also having that Western knowledge base too over the years. There's really too many to name. Unfortunately, a lot of my practitioners have since passed because it's been a long time. But I continue to learn from everybody. So everybody in my social circle, in my professional circle, I learn from them. I don't take the premise that I know everything. I'm far from an expert. I'm always a student. And I try to do my best to give back to the community by mentoring students as well. I take interns, from Kaiser, FAU, certain programs, Palm Beach State, USF, UF, FSU, wherever, out of both locations. And it allows me to mold them and actually like give them a hands-on education that they may not get at their facilities.
So for someone that's interested in what you do and getting started, what advice do you have for them?
So, like I said, always continue to be a student, learn from everything, study everything, ask the right questions. No question is really a dumb question. Seek out the education. Somebody with an exercise phys degree can easily work in one of these centers. It just depends state to state. Who is allowed to touch the DEXA scan because it is X-ray. So in the state of Florida, you have to either be a physician's or a licensed radiologic technologist like me to be able to run the DEXA scans. So it, like I said, on that component, it really varies from state to state. But to be involved, you can do certification programs that allow you to learn about the VO2, basic nutrition, and you can get hands-on training indirectly from the professionals running the DEXA. So it's really kind of a really odd, like a gray area definition, but I would say anybody who's focused on like the body as a whole, studying human nutrition, or how metabolic science works.
What is something that you haven't mentioned that you like people to know about metabolic science?
So it's not as tough as you think. I think I touched on that before. It's just really kind of slowing down to understand the science behind it. And once you understand the science behind your requirements, although they do change with age and activity levels and body composition, things like that, at least you have a foundational knowledge of understanding the science of why things are the way they are, how the nutrients are broken down by the body, what impact exercises have on your body, how to fuel your body, and what choices to make for your lifestyle and for your goals. So,
what's something else that you haven't mentioned that you'd like us to know about Liveline?
Well, we like to work with, people in the community. Like I said before, nothing really that I haven't mentioned. But, I mean, we do corporate wellness programs. That's something I haven't mentioned. We like it when big groups come in, either from gyms or like take it upon themselves, like a group of friends come in, to create brand awareness and to like, get that friendly competition going. We're all about that. Creating a positive competition environment for those people to kind of like bet on their health and to motivate people to get healthier. So
Awesome. Any last words? Anything else?
not really, but I guess if you're
Your website? You want to share your website?
I mean, liveleanrxfl.com. You can reach out to me personally there on the email.
What about social?
Okay, so Live Lean RX Boca, Live Lean RX Tampa, and then my personal one is Coach Heather _ Live Lean RX FL.
Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.